Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this position. It is white to move and hopefully win. Now look, this is one of the most trickiest endgames I ever seen. I tried to solve it many times, and every single time I try to solve it, I get caught up with another trick and it still leads to some kind of a draw. So you have to be very, very careful in how to deal with this pawn promoting. So this pawn is going like this, and the other pawn is going like this, and the c2 pawn for white is trying to promote like this. So how would you win for white? Because you need to stop the pawn first, because if you cannot do that, you're going to lose the game. So your primary focus is to deal with this pawn first, then to deal with how you can, push your pawn and make a queen. Okay. So hopefully you pause the video on your own to try to figure out the answer. Now, the pawn can be stopped. You might be thinking that the pawn can be stopped by both of these two pawns. So you might be thinking about moving this knight or moving this knight, and you think it is the exact same thing, which will lead to the pawn being stopped. So let's, check the knight moves. Of course, this is not the right move because, he can just push, and there's no way for you to stop this pawn from promoting. So, of course, you saw the move knight to f5, and you're attacking the pawn. He cannot defend it because then you're going to sacrifice the knight for the pawn, take his pawn, and promote your pawn and make a queen. That's very simple. So he pushes the pawn to g2. After pushing the pawn, this is going to be a queen on the next turn. It feels like you cannot really do anything to stop this pawn, but you have a trick which is knight to h4. See, knight to h4, it is attacking the pawn right away. Black does not have the time to defend it because white, we're going to take this pawn right away, and then we're going to sack the knight for it because it is more important to eliminate the threat of black and then just take his pawn and then make a queen of our own. So in this position, black has to do something here. Now, if you thought about making the queen, well, he's going to give you the check on f3. You move your king to d1, and in this position, he takes your queen, because if he didn't take the queen, it's actually losing for white, because the queen is really strong. A lot of checks, he's going to lose everything. Especially this pawn is really, really early, and it cannot really reach c8 right away. So white will take your queen, and here you have your final check, or your final threat, which is the move a4, which you can still actually play the exact same move before. So whenever he plays this move, knight to h4, you can play actually a4, which is better to play it now, not to make the queen first. Now, this move, I'm pretty sure you see it in a lot of your games, because whenever you're completely crushing your opponent, he tries, you know what, I'm going to sack the pawn, I'm going to sack the queen, I'm going to sack everything in order to get some kind of a stalemate. So you understand that it is some kind of, you're losing, and so you're going to give every piece you have. Okay, so you take this pawn. Taking this pawn, which I thought is completely fine, but actually it is not. It is not, because this move leads to a draw. Imagine that just taking a pawn on the side of the board will lead to a draw for white, and you can draw this as black. And the way to do this is to try to deal with this pawn pushing. You have to stop this pawn. So if you try to make a queen, white is forced to play knight to f3 check to attack your queen, because white needs to take the queen. The queen should not be on the board. And then you can play king d1. After king d1, he cannot defend the pawn, because then your queen will be free to give some checks and to win the knight. It will be completely crushing for you. So white has to take your queen, and king takes pawn. This is a draw. This is a draw. White cannot win this. It is a book draw. Meaning that, if it was a knight and a bishop, then it is a theoretical checkmate for white. There is, but then you have to, find the sequence of moves to try to get the checkmate. But with the knight, it is not possible for white to do this. Especially like not a GM. So even a GM cannot do this. So you might say, well, what is wrong with, king takes a4? It's just a free pawn, right? Well, it is not. Because whenever they take, you saw that after this check, he's going to be losing this pawn. So you might say that after this, king can just move away. For example, like b2. Even if b2, we have the exact same move, a3. You're trying to force the king away to make a queen, forcing the knight to push your king closer to the pawn, but he cannot defend it because he needs to deal with the queen first. So that's the point. He's still trying to take this pawn in any way, because if you manage to take this pawn, it will be a draw right away. So after this check, white does not take the pawn, for example. He can just move away. Well, it's still not good for white, because you can still make this queen. Whenever he gives you this check, you can move the king to d1, and he needs to take the queen, and when he does, you push a2, and now you're going to make a queen on the next turn. He doesn't have any checks, and he cannot even go king b2. You're still going to make a queen, because you're trying to force the king away from the pawn to take it. And once you reach this position, it's going to be a draw. Okay, so it is knight to f5. Now look, this puzzle is not over. It is far from over. There are many tricks ahead of us. So after knight to f5, g2, and knight h4, and this check, white, there's only one move for white that actually keeps the advantage for white. Only one move. It is not taking the pawn, it is not running away from the pawn, it is king c3. You're trying to keep defending this pawn on c2. Now, the crazy thing about this, that we have this. We have this promotion. We make a queen. Knight takes, knight f3 check, and then the king moves, and then white takes the queen. You might say, well, this is not winning for black. It's not even a drawing for black. This is completely losing. The pawn is there, the pawn is protected, everything's fine. Well, we can just push this pawn. I'm going to try to make a queen. The knight cannot give us any checks. The knight is really too far. The king cannot get close, because even if we played king b3, for example, this is a draw for black, because of a2. King gets closer, we force the king away from the pawn, and then we take it. But look, this is winning for white only if there was one move that was played with the white pieces, and it is in this exact position. After knight takes queen. After knight takes queen, you push your pawn trying to go for the final blow and trying to move the king away from this pawn in order to get your draw. After the move a3, there's only one move for white that keeps the advantage and does not draw the game. One move. Try to find it. Remember, it's not getting the king closer to deal with this pawn, because whenever you do that, you're going to remove the defender of this pawn, and it will lead to an eventual draw. So you don't want to draw. You need the win. What would you play? In this position, oh my god, knight d5. Not in a million years I would see knight d5. What the F am I doing to stop this pawn? Nothing. So there's the move a2, and we're going to make a queen on the next turn. Now look, it is not king b2. It is not king b2. You know why? Because of this check. And of course, white should not keep us. Should not let us have the queen. This is very bad, because F check, and then we can take this pawn, and it's going to be a draw. He needs to take the queen, and this is still a draw. So after this a2 push, white has to play knight to e3 check. Now, if king e1, this is completely bad, because then he can get to the pawn. This pawn is protected. So after this move, we attack both of these knights. It doesn't matter. He can just take our pawn, and then we take this knight, but then the pawn will promote. It's very easy win for white in this position. So it's not king e1. It's king c1. Now, you might look at this as white, and you might say, well, white is completely cooked here. Black is winning because there's a1 queen. Well, there's knight to e2 first. Knight to e2 attacking the king. Only one move for black. It is king b1. Now here, you might look at this position and you're like, what? This is winning for black. Nothing can stop this pawn from promoting. Nothing. Nothing. White does not have any checks. The pawn cannot be pushed. The king doesn't do anything. You might see this and say that black is completely winning this, or at least getting a draw because of the queen. No. The winning move for white in this position, because this is actually not a draw for black in this theme of this position, because in order to win for white, white has to find some impossible moves. Even engines cannot see these moves. It's completely insane. King d2. Allowing your opponent to make a queen and still trying to get the win is completely gangster. That's amazing. So now this move, black can move his king and can make a queen, of course. So if he makes a queen, thinking, okay, we got the queen, we got the win. No, because of knight c3 check. Knight c3, the king cannot go here, of course, cannot go there because of the knight, so he needs to go king b2 or take this. If he takes with the queen, for example, let's just look at it really fast. If he takes, we take with the king. It is not stalemate, the king still can move, and all we have to do, move the king away, allow black to move, and then push the pawn. Don't care about this knight, just push the pawn, make a queen, and win the game really, really easy. So, in this check, king b2. After king b2, well, even if we allowed black to make the queen, we're actually checkmating white. It is knight c4. Knight c4 check, cannot go here, cannot go here, cannot go here, cannot go there because of the knight, cannot go back because of the king. This is a win for white. But in order to win, white had to make these really impossible looking moves. Allowing your opponent to have a queen is completely insane. Also, being offered a pawn on the spot, like right away, and not taking it, and actually leads to a draw, which is completely insane because after it takes, there is a queen, and after this check, king moves and takes and takes. Now, there's other things that I want you to see here, which is what was the formation that I wanted to look at? So after this a4 check, probably king moves. Yeah, it is the king c3 move that actually gets the win. Because any other move, like taking this pawn, or even going a3, remember, moving away from the pawn will lead to a draw, because after this queen check here, he doesn't have time to defend the pawn in any kind of way, because he needs to deal with the queen first, and after king takes, even if he takes here, this is still a draw. White cannot win this. So do you think that white can actually, I mean, in a real game, can you actually see these moves for white? The knight d5 at the end and these knight maneuvers. Now, remember, this knight can actually stop the pawn, but it will not lead to a win for white. Because you might say, well, I thought about knight e6. And whenever, black plays g2, there is knight g5, and black cannot make a queen because after this check, king will move, and it will lead to this. Well, the exact same thing. a4 check. You take, I take, and this is a draw. You move the king, I'll play a3. And what you're going to do, the knight cannot do anything there. You're going to try to attack the pawn because you need to stop this pawn from promoting. And even if he actually played some kind of a knight f5 or something, and maybe we actually reach the exact same position. Let's see. a2, knight e3 check. Yes, it is exactly the exact same position because after knight e2 check, king b1, and now king d2, allowing the queen to make knight c3, and after king b2, knight c4 check. So it still does the same thing, I guess, moving the exact same knight. Yes. So this was it for white. You have to play, first of all, wait, not here. Knight to f5 first, because this move is the best. King, g2, because wait, actually it doesn't work because you need this knight to get to here, to get this check to attack the king once he goes on d1. This knight is actually the one that actually wins the game. Now after this, knight h4, making the queen, you have to play this check first. And if he fell for it, and I'm pretty sure that anyone being offered a pawn will actually take it, especially when you see the pawn trying to get, to the promotion square. 100% we're going to take it. We're not going to play king c3. Seeing this and knowing this is not going to be a loss for white, which is completely insane. Tell me in the video, in the comments, if you manage to find the solution for both black and white, because this position is not only for black, it is for white and black, because it's completely insane. Every single one of them has tricks of his own to try to get the win or draw. Thank you so much for watching.